What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Reggie TV, and today we're going to talk about Back 4 Blood. So after I made my 2042 video, I thought to myself, what are other video games that I can talk about, either good, bad, or mid? I ended up going down a list of different games for me to talk about. Call of Duty Ghosts, Gears of War Judgment, Arkham Origins, and then I figured, fuck it, why not talk about something recent? And that's how we got to Back 4 Blood. Back 4 Blood is a zombie-based first-person shooter released in October of 2021. The game circles around a group of survivors who have been left to fend off against hordes of zombies in a post-apocalyptic version of some fictional city or state in Pennsylvania. I don't fucking remember. The game focuses around cooperative gameplay. Just like its predecessor, Left 4 Dead, it's a 4-player co-op game. Notice how I brought up its predecessor, Left 4 Dead. I bring that up because the creators and developers of the Left 4 Dead games played a part in making the Back 4 Blood game that came out last year. I want you to keep that in mind, because that's a point that's going to be brought up later, and it plays a really big part in why people didn't like this shit. Now me, I love zombie games. I love anything horror. So when I found out the people who helped make Left 4 Dead, a series I love, was making another game, I figured, okay, this might as well be another Left 4 Dead 3, so I gotta cop it. Which, looking back at it, is the exact same thing I did with 2042. Unlike my 2042 video, this video isn't being made to shit on Back 4 Blood. Compared to 2042, Back 4 Blood has good, decent qualities. It's still a pretty okay game, it just wasn't as good as what I thought it was going to be. Now, one of those reasons, if not the biggest reasons, stem from how they pushed the game. Due to the reveal of former developers for the Left 4 Dead series playing a part in making Back 4 Blood, I believe that set a pedestal too high for Back 4 Blood to accomplish. Let's use cinema, for example. The Dark Knight is considered the greatest, if not one of the greatest, Batman movies ever made. Hell, I've heard people refer to The Dark Knight as the greatest movie DC has ever made. I remember how huge that movie was when it first came out. Christian Bale's Batman mixed with Heath Ledger's Joker finished off with a great deal of storytelling, made for a great Batman movie, made for a great DC movie. A lot of people, including myself, consider that movie a masterpiece. Now let's say out of nowhere there was a studio that wanted to make a movie called X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they lead with, from the creators of The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, we bring you X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yes, I know the same people did not make the movie, but in this scenario, let's say that they did. The movie X-Men Origins Wolverine has a very, very bad reputation. People hate on this movie, 13, 12 years later after its release. From its story to its screwed version of Deadpool, people despise that movie. To this day, they despise that movie. The reason why I use X-Men Origins as an example is because I rewatched the movie. The shit wasn't that bad. It was actually kind of somewhat really good. I enjoyed the movie. Other than the Deadpool, the movie was actually really good. Scenes like Deadpool's bullet deflection in the beginning of the movie were really enjoyable to watch. Now I say all that to say this, the reason why I use these two movies as an example is because I believe that's the problem with Back 4 Blood. Back 4 Blood isn't necessarily a bad game, it could have been worse. The issue is when you have the creators of a franchise that is loved the way Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 is loved, you have to be very careful with what you attach that to. Because not only are you tapping into people's interests, now you're tapping into people's nostalgia. That now forces the game you are advertising to be in a position to whereas if it is not as good or better than its predecessors, it is considered bad. I believe that Back 4 Blood suffers from this problem. Back 4 Blood, in my opinion, is a pretty decent game. I'll go as far as say it's a good game. Its issue is that due to it being attached for Left 4 Dead 2 and 1, you would expect it to be better than what it was. And that's not to take away from the criticisms of the game. There are valid criticisms. Like if you compare it to Left 4 Dead 2, I'll say the fear factor doesn't hit the same way the older games did. There was a certain level of fear and paranoia you felt playing games like Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Especially 2. From the witch to the creature, to the jockey, to that tongue thing that wrapped around your throat and pulled you in. Them shits was scary. They had legitimate jump scares in those games. Being in a pitch black parking lot surrounded by the sounds of a crying witch and you not knowing where it's coming from, that shit's scary. That will leave you paranoid. You don't know where she is and you don't want to go out looking for her because if you bump into her, she'll attack you. Paranoia at its finest, an aspect that Back 4 Blood didn't use. If they had put more of an effort into making a good horror game rather than a good Left 4 Dead spin-off, I believe the game would have received more positive critique. Now, I feel like some of y'all might think that I'm reaching, and that's perfectly fine. And that's fine, I can understand why y'all would see it that way. I just want y'all to take a look at World War Z Aftermath. World War Z Aftermath is a third-person shooter / horror game based off of the horror movie World War Z. The game showcases different groups of survivors across the world making different attempts to survive the zombie apocalypse. It's the same concept as Back 4 Blood or the Left 4 Dead games. Granted, I enjoy World War Z better, mainly due to its multiplayer, but as I said, it's still the same concept as Back 4 Blood. Granted, World War Z is still a better game compared to Back 4 Blood, but I truly believe the reason why I didn't face the same critique that Back 4 Blood did is because World War Z Aftermath isn't attached to a video game series that radiates nostalgia. I mean, yeah, it's attached to a movie, but who the fuck in 2022 is talking about World War Z? Not I, and not you either. And because of that factor, I believe the game was handled better. Now, as I said in the beginning, I don't want this to be a thing where I'm shitting on Back 4 Blood. The game's pretty okay. It's not bad, but it could have definitely been handled better. I just believe that when you attach something to something as big as Left 4 Dead or The Dark Knight or whatever the fuck you're attaching something to, it needs to be handled accordingly. I feel like Back 4 Blood had the potential to be a really good horror game. Well, not really a horror game, but more of a video game per se, but it was overshadowed by the fact that it was a spin-off of Left 4 Dead. Like, when it comes to games like Left 4 Dead, Dead Rising, or Dead Island, these are horror games and video games in general that left an impact on the people who played them. So if you're going to make a spin-off of that game, you need to be sure you cross your T's and dot your I's. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Dying Light a spin-off of Dead Island? And if it is, you don't hear nobody complaining about that shit, right? Because they did it right. Instead of being Dead Island Part 2, they made it its own thing and it became successful. And I feel like that's the blueprint that they should have did with Back 4 Blood. Now, hey man, I hope y'all enjoyed that video. I know I went on a bit of a tangent, you know what I'm saying, by bringing up shit like X-Men or The Dark Knight or whatever, but I really needed y'all to understand how I felt about the game and how I feel like it could have prospered if they handled it better. You know what I'm saying? I mean, shit, it's still better than 2042, so I'll give it that. It's not completely bad. It's still better than that shit, but it still could have been improved. Also, I'm kind of sick, so if I sound kind of funny, just know I was kind of doing this shit with a stuffy nose. You know, I hope it wasn't like too bad, but hey, as I said, I appreciate y'all for watching the video. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all for watching Reggie TV, and I'm out.